All right, I believe we are up. Welcome to another special crossover edition of Hail Yes and Spartan Speak. I am Andrew Birkle, of course, joined by Tony Garcia, my normal partner on Hail Yes, as well as the Spartan Speak guys, Chris Solari and Graham Couch. Chris, you're coming fresh off a trip to New Jersey where weather made it difficult. You had a tight turn. How was the trip? Just pretty uneventful, right?
Well, there was no pickleball, so that was a little bit of a letdown there. I'm really close to my professional status in pickleball, I think, but it was an interesting trip for many reasons, and I won't get into the travel conundrums that began in Detroit and ended in Detroit. But
by the way, most of Chris's travel conundrums are self-inflicted over time.
This one was not
this one, but let's just start with that. Yeah.
I remember hearing about Chris's travel trouble 10 years ago when I started. It was a problem.
This had something to do with the 16 inches of snow that pounded the eastern seaboard. But credit to the New Jersey Transportation Department for clearing the roadways. I will give them that, because the drive to Piscataway was wonderful. Other than that, hiccup along the way.
As any good podcast starts off by thanking the New Jersey travel agencies.
There was a little bit of self-inflicted travel in transit to the arena, but we also hit stop and not even stop and go, just stop traffic. But I guess that's what happens when you've had 16 inches of snow in a major metropolitan area. But I digress. The game itself, I thought Michigan State looked like a team who's played a lot of basketball in a short period of time in 3 different time zones. And I give them a lot of credit for whatever was said at halftime, because Jeremy Fears, after really playing poorly in the first half and getting into foul trouble, really started to take over, and before he started getting towards that 29 points, he started taking over the tempo, the pace, the half court sets, and the defense. And the defense got much better than it had been early in the game. And Rutgers was shooting the lights out of the ball in that. But Fears really took control. And I thought the other thing that goes unsaid was there were a lot of off-box score contributions. I mean, Jordan Scott played a fantastic game. He played 26 minutes, really emerged when Rutgers went to a smaller lineup, which I don't think is going to be the case against Michigan, mind you, although they do have some lineup diversity. But Scott came in at the 3, and Cohen Carr played the 4, and Scott played a little bit of 2 to give him some length. And that really, with his, I think he had 4 offensive rebounds and really applied some defense and hit a couple big shots when they were struggling to score. And Jackson Kohler had a struggle of a game, but he set a big screen on Divine Ugachuk, who was tying 3-pointer. I mean, they came back from 12 down in the last 10 minutes, and really Fears after that willed them to the win. I don't think there were many people who would have thought with 10 minutes left that Michigan State would have won that game, but that's kind of, I think Tony probably saw something similar in Ann Arbor, even though it was a lot closer for much of that game. But this was one of those dynamic wins when you saw what Jeremy Fears did, that you could see why Tom Izzo recruited him and why Tom Izzo thinks he is his point guard for this team and beyond.
Yeah, I remember it was just real quick. It was about like 8:15 or so, and obviously I'm watching the Michigan-Nebraska game in front of me, and Michigan's down 8, 9, as much as 11. In the second half, it was closer to like 6 or 7, but they're down 7, and they had 6 turnovers in 6 minutes. They were looking sloppy, and I've always got like a scoreboard up just with all the other Big Ten action going on. And I said to like some of my media colleagues down the row, I'm like, I don't know if this game's going to have the same juice. Like, I thought both these teams were going to be coming off a loss, and I didn't get to see how the Michigan State one played out. Michigan, it felt like I don't know that they stole one. Like the way you're describing it, it sounds like Michigan State kind of stole one. Michigan did, in the sense that they were trailing for 36 minutes, but they made a lot of really good halftime adjustments. Nebraska was not at full strength without Braden Frager or Rink Mast, and Michigan's depth and size just kind of grinded them down, right? And by the end, I mean, Nebraska's 10 of 21 from 3 in the first half. They're 1 of 13 in the second half. I mean, that's both legs as well as Michigan sort of switching their defensive ball screen coverage. And I mean, obviously one's on the road, one's at home, but one is against a pretty bad, I think we can all say, Rutgers team, and one is against, I mean, I was unbelievably impressed with Nebraska and what I saw, especially shorthanded. And I know we're going to move this forward to Michigan and Michigan State. But Andrew, we said yesterday on the Hail Yes that's up this morning on our feed, I've never come away more impressed with a team after a loss, like thought higher of them following a loss, but than I do Nebraska. I think they can make some serious noise. And I know, Graham, this is totally a you take and thing. I mean, Nebraska's going to win this Big Ten tournament, right? It just means more, right? It's like, I feel like for those teams that haven't been there before and what it really means, like, I don't know how Michigan won it last year. I don't know that they care to grind all the way through it. Maybe Purdue still, but I think I would like Nebraska to win.
The argument against that would only be if Nebraska finds a way to win the regular season title, if they're healthy. And, I mean, obviously,
okay. Yeah.
You got a ranked mass is worth more than 3 points. I mean, that's a big loss. And so, like that what they've shown until this game, they still had the best 2 wins in the Big Ten this year. At Illinois and Michigan State, I think, in terms of just in total. Now that'll change as some of these teams start to play each other even a little more. But so I if they were to win it, and I also think if they were to win the regular season, I think the Big Ten tournament might not mean as much to them. And what will be interesting there is they've never gotten anywhere in the NCAA tournament as a program. And so that'll be a huge focus for them too. So it'll be interesting to see what the me and my mixed feelings on the Big Ten tournament. So but yeah, it'll be interesting to see who wants it. Cause you're right. They will want something for themselves. So that would be a big deal if they don't win the regular season and they're able to do it in the postseason. And it's fun having them be this good because, we talk about this game and this sort of collision of Michigan and Michigan State being as good as the two have ever been when they faced each other. And yet it's a league at the top that's just better than it's been. Now, there have been years where the Big Ten's been maybe deeper. I mean, you can argue what Rutgers showed. There's potential for depth at the very bottom. But overall, we've seen, a league this deep before. We have not seen, I don't think, 4 or 5 teams like this with Final Four potential in a year, in a while. And Nebraska sort of elevates things by joining the party. And they're absolutely legit. I mean, people say Michigan State didn't play that well when they were down there, but I didn't think Nebraska played that well that day either.
Well, I think their defense has had something to do with that, but I do think that, listen, we talk about the depth. It's also January 29th, and one of the things about having 18 teams is you don't get a real clear picture of what the conference looks like. I mean, Michigan State's schedule 10 games into the Big Ten. I mean, outside of the Nebraska game, who they played. I mean, that's a reality. And, who have some of these other teams played and who do they have in the back half of it? I mean, listen, Michigan State's back half of the schedule, they still got to play Purdue, which has struggled, but is still 7-3. They still got to play Wisconsin. They still got to play Illinois. They got 2 games with Michigan. They got UCLA and they got Ohio State. Those are all the top teams in the Big Ten that are left.
Yeah, on the back.
The only bottom team left is Minnesota, and Minnesota still has 3 wins.
Yeah, and on the back half, a lot of those are on the road. Illinois is at home, but the Michigan rematch, obviously, Indiana is always difficult at Assembly Hall.
Yeah,
late in the season for Michigan State. At Purdue's on the road. Missing somebody else there on the road, but yeah, it's a lot of Indiana,
Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Wisconsin's on the road, right? Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
and Minnesota. So those are the 5 in the back half.
I think what makes Michigan State so interesting right now is that the winner of this game, because I think to win the league, you're going to have to go 17-3. Somebody is going to be good enough at the top to do that.
I don't think it's going to be 3 losses. It might be. We got 1 loss for all these teams right now. With the way these schedules shape up, it could be 4 or 5 losses to me.
You're just not going to get there. Somebody's going to, Michigan State last year got it, down the stretch without losing. Somebody's going to win big games. There are too many top teams with only 1 loss. I think. So, it's always possible that happens. I just don't see it. And so that's what I think in terms of like the consequence of Friday night's game, I think it really puts one of them in not necessarily the driver's seat because there are other teams right there with them, but gives them a pretty serious leg up in trying to be one of those teams. I just think that's what it's probably going to take. Now, Purdue falling off a little bit is the argument against that, right? Because
but last year Michigan State had 3 losses, and they were 3 games better, and so that means everybody else had 6 losses, and that's the real first test case of an 18-team Big Ten, and that's I think we talk about the depth of the league, but the size and volume of the league also comes into play, which is a little different in terms of the differing styles that you have to play. So that's why I think, Michigan State won it with 3 losses a year ago, but I think that could be an anomaly and an outlier because
I'll bet you your rental car at the Big Ten tournament that there's only 3 losses for the championship, and you've got to walk everywhere if I'm right. How's that?
Where's the Big Ten tournament?
Chicago.
No, that's not really a rental car.
Uber territory. Perfect. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah. You can pay the parking tab on it. How about that?
Yeah, but I'm with Graham though in the sense that if 16-4 wins this league, let's say, it's going to be at least 2 teams, probably 3. If you want to win this league outright, I think it's going to take 17 wins. 16, if you're at 16, the best you're going to do is a share because somebody else will have 16.
Let's look at I'm going to look at Nebraska's schedule. We'll just you shape up Michigan's schedule, but I'll look at Nebraska's schedule.
Yeah. While you're pulling that up, do you have it?
I have it. Nebraska still has to play Illinois. They got to go to Rutgers, and I don't care what anybody says about Rutgers being down. There's talent on that team. More importantly, that place is a really tough place to play. Ask Purdue when they were number 1 in the country how difficult that place is to play. And they lost twice there at number 1. They got to go. So Nebraska also has to play Purdue. So they get Illinois and Purdue at home, which is tough.
They beat Illinois.
Yep. Northwestern at Iowa. They got Penn State, Maryland at home. And then they finish with a West Coast trip, which again, now what you're going to look at with that is they got to go to the West Coast and play at the back end of a Big Ten season. Michigan State did that, but Michigan State did that in the middle of the Big Ten season healthy and lost both games.
But if they're healthy,
and then more importantly, they got to make that turn from the West Coast right into Big Ten tournament play.
But look what they just did at Minnesota, right? They're down at the halftime. They're playing awful. They come out and just throttle the Gophers in the second half. If they were healthy, they'd be unbeaten, right? And so I just don't see where I think they're legit, and I think they're hungry. They're kind of like a version of the Pistons and college style. Like, the Pistons have an advantage right now. Not only are they a good team, but they're hungry. They're regular season hungry, right, in the NBA, and that's contributing to their record a little bit. And I think Nebraska, because they haven't done any of this, because they're good and this is all new and fresh and everything, they are hungry for this day in and day out to do something that's never been done there, to be a historic team. I'm not saying like if Rank Bass is out for more than a game, like that's an all conference level center, like that's, you can't, and injuries could obviously change this whole thing.
That's all well and good, but the combined records last year, the 3 teams Michigan State lost to was 30-30. This is what an 18-team Big Ten is. It doesn't matter.
Somebody will fade.
Well, it's not even just about that somebody will fade. It's somebody else is going to come up from that bottom tier or mid-tier.
The top is different. The top is different this year than it's been. It's just different. It's not the same. Michigan State's not even the same. Michigan State's a better team than they were a year ago. And we've talked about this. Like if Michigan State played that,
I agree. Both of these teams are better. Yeah, for sure.
So is Michigan.
The top is better, and so that is.
But that doesn't mean that the middle isn't either.
The middle, I think, is almost non-existent to a large degree this year. It seems like there's really the haves and the have-nots. Looking at the standings, you have Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana, USC. Those teams are all floating, within a game or so of 500 in conference play. And, I feel like those teams are much closer to the bottom than the top of the conference as far as those teams with one loss,
Well, I think it's 3 very distinct, not evenly spaced quadrants. I think, Grant, we've gone over the top 5. We know who the top 5 are. That middle to me is Wisconsin. It's UCLA. It's Ohio State. And then that, I mean, that's kind of where the 3 is. And then the bottom 9 are in any order. I think on the right day, some of those other teams can Indiana and Iowa, I would say are the bottom of the middle, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and
it's still college basketball.
That's 1 through 10. And
and those are
even
two,
of the bottom
those
teams,
are also
I think Minnesota is the most dangerous. I mean, we're really sort of digressing,
those are 3
getting
tough
off
places
the
to
beaten
play.
path here, but
for the teams that have to go play those teams on the road, that's difficult places to play.
And Michigan,
I mean, to Chris's point, both Michigan and Michigan State almost lost to Penn State, right? They both almost lost to Penn State.
No,
At
it's,
Penn State.
I mean, I guess
it's true. It's true.
Which isn't even a hard place to play. Yeah.
It's not. It's the worst road environment in the Big Ten for a home team.
Yeah, and Michigan still has to play at Ohio State, at Purdue, at Northwestern, which is pretty much a home game for Michigan. But I don't know. I've seen Welsh Ryan be okay on a given night. They still but it all comes.
This isn't that kind of Northwestern team.
No, but it all comes down to, in my estimation, for these two teams, even more so for Michigan State than Michigan, because this is the road game for Michigan. If they lose it, then you have the chance to get it on the back end. But if you win this, then you've taken care of business in what is your hardest game on the schedule. I mean, Mackey is its own beast, as we all know, but it's not the rivalry.
Tony, let me ask you this: Will Dusty May, if Michigan's in a driver's seat position again late in the year, put a call out to Michigan fans to join the party, so to speak? Like, what I'm curious, because that Maryland game last year cost Michigan, and it was on the fans, because I think that's a deflating environment when you don't have a home court advantage, and you go out there and you see your crowd, like you got a Penn State crowd and a midweek with a Big Ten title on the line. I think that's and I understand it's always been an issue with basketball there, but that was a real sort of defining tell us where you are moment, I thought, for the fan base, and they failed in that moment. I wonder 2 things. I wonder if they lose this game and this no longer has this feel of like a historic season, where it still does, even with 1 loss, or if they get down there and they get a home game or a 7 p.m. on a Wednesday in February, that's where Michigan doesn't have Breslin. That's where Michigan State gets an extra win or 2 a year, and that's the concern for me is not Michigan on the road as much as it is. Do they not get the advantage some other teams do at home at the top, like Illinois and Michigan State and whatnot, Purdue?
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not the same environment as those 4. I mean, the 2 Indiana schools, Illinois and Michigan State, I think we all know are the top 4 home environments in the league. But Chrysler's been much better this year. I mean, I was going to reference that Maryland game as well last year. I almost wrote about it. If I was you, I know I would have. But it just wasn't my lane on that day. There was more just sort of what it meant in the big picture, not just on the fans. But it was on the fans. But this year, I mean, it was sold out, and it was a really good environment for Nebraska. The game before, Ohio State, Trey Burke's jersey's going up. It was also really good. I know I saw a picture circulating on Twitter, like call it a late arriving crowd or something. I still use it's like the metric that I think you've taught me too many things, unfortunately, or I subscribe to one too many philosophies of yours, Graham. But it's like the start of the second quarter in the football games, right? That's where you get the sense of the crowd. I mean, it needs to be a few minutes into the game, and so it was sold out on Tuesday. They've done a lot better. I have no concerns about what that crowd is going to be like on that last day. Senior day, Michigan State coming in. Odds are something's going to be on the line for one of those 2 teams. I think Michigan will still be in the hunt at that point. Even if they're eliminated from the Big Ten race, I don't know that they will be. I mean, 2 seed would be like the worst case scenario. They're playing for something here. it feels way different than last year. Last year it was good and nice and like they were trying to convince themselves that they're playing for something and then they ran out of juice down the end. I don't know how this season's going to play out, but I know this team has the goods to win a Big Ten title, to go to a Final Four, and to feel as good as just about anybody winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I want to give the Illinois side of this too, because I think we've talked about the other three because Nebraska has been there for so long and it's such a surprise story. But Illinois, I mean, they're a tough team to beat. They got to go to Nebraska. They still got they
lost at Nebraska already, right?
Oh, yeah, no, they lost at
home. That's right. Yeah, they got to go to here, right?
And that was the point where I had a friend that I talked to who does radio out in the upper Midwest. And that was not him. But he had told me that, he started believing in Nebraska with the Michigan State game. And I said, you really should have started believing when they won at Illinois, because that is
a better win. 100%. Yeah.
And we talk about home crowd environments. I mean, before the game what that Illinois crowd's going to be like, because that Illinois crowd's been there for an hour. And that is a tough, that is a top 5 tough place to play in the Big Ten. I can't really. It all depends on how a team is doing, how the road environment is. But they also have to play Washington and Northwestern at home with that trip to Nebraska sandwich between. They have to play at MSU, which will be tough. But this stretch is going to define where Illinois is. They play at MSU, at home against Wisconsin and Indiana. And then they take the West Coast trip to USC and UCLA, and then they play Michigan. So, I mean, all these front runners right now, their back half of the schedule is loaded. And
I think Michigan's probably the lightest.
You sit there and you look at one win right now, could easily be 4 by.
But somebody has to win those games. They can't go both. They can't both go 0-1 and when they play each other. Like I still think if you think about
but it doesn't matter about going 0-1. I mean, when you've got to make the trip to play UCLA and USC and Indiana that aren't in that mix.
There are losses that are going to pile up. But when you look at the Big Ten standings right now, the number of teams with just one loss is what I'm saying. So if that allows for 2 losses in the back half. So what I'm saying is somebody in the Big Ten is going to go 8-2 in the back half. Somebody is good enough to do that. If I had to guess, it would be Michigan. But somebody is going to go 8-2 in that back half.
It could be Purdue. I mean, and Purdue's 5 losses and wins the Big Ten.
Graham, some of these last year. Think about Michigan State's schedule last year. We were all circling it as the back half of the year was looming. You're like, oh man, look at MSU's schedule. They've got the game at Illinois. They've got the game, the 2 games against Michigan. Well, then they basically, run the table after they pick up that 3rd loss. And it was like, oh, well, maybe some of those games weren't as tough as it is. So like eventually you as the games play out, someone gets hot, the cream rises to the crop, cream of the crop rises, whatever the stupid term is. But yeah, like you eventually a team, usually not always, but sticks out amongst the rest. And I think that one of those teams is a strong candidate to at least become the standout team amongst all of them. Because like you said, we're halfway through the season, right? I mean, there's a lot of basketball that has been played, even though there is still a lot left,
Yeah.
An equal amount, you might say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go big picture here as far as this game, because we haven't talked much about the actual Michigan State game. This is, Tony, the biggest Michigan game since when do you think?
Well, I mean, regular season game, right? Because, I mean, they were just in Sweet 16 last year.
Yeah. March doesn't count.
I don't know. I would say, well, since this week. Right. I mean, they just played a top 5 home game against Nebraska. But before that, it had been 5 years since they played in a top 5, top 10 matchup. So you could say it was like Illinois 2021, but that was a COVID year. And so there weren't a ton of fans in the stands. The next year, Michigan just narrowly, actually, I guess the next year they made it to the Sweet 16 and then they narrowly missed the tournament and then they bottomed out. But there weren't a ton of these type of games last year. I mean, it felt like, I think both sides were ranked when they met both times. Right.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
And so, I mean, like those games felt big that when Michigan State came to Chrysler last year, that was a really big game. But no, I mean, this one off the top of my head, this is probably the biggest game in 5 years, and the most they can gain from any game, I would say, in 5 years, especially because I had a story on Freep.com this morning just about Michigan is 3-20 this century at Breslin Center, right? And those three games, what that win did for those teams. Michigan is 1-6 in 2011 when Zach Novak and Stu Douglas go crazy, and they flipped the entire script on the season. They're 1-6 in Big Ten play, and then they make the NCAA tournament and win a game, right? And that was before Michigan was making, that was the beginning of the run. Trey Burke comes in the next year and takes the program to the next level. Then in 2014, Stauskas is blowing kisses to the fans, and he hits 5 threes, and they win that one. Sort of coming from behind in the second half. Michigan wins the Big Ten tournament that year, and then Mo Wagner just takes Nick Ward's lunch money in 2017-18 season, and so that one was, also a massive year, obviously, and so what the win means in East Lansing. They went to national titles without winning in East Lansing. But if you do, the confidence that all these former players told me about just the way it can change the season. So to Graham's point, I think it's going to be hard for Michigan to go 8-2 in the back of this schedule. They have Illinois, Purdue, and Michigan State all on the road. That's 3 tough road games. So say you win one of those and you drop 2, you have to hold serve everywhere else. And it's just, it's just not easy. So that's why this game is just so pivotal early. Because if you can win at Breslin, you can win at Mackey, you can win in Champaign. And so it's just huge.
Barring a Michigan State win at Michigan, I think this has the potential to be the biggest win in the conference all year for any team, right? It has that potential depending on how things shake out. Obviously, we talked about the Nebraska win at Illinois, but when you're talking about 2 top 5 teams and the way Michigan State had been playing before the Rutgers game, this is the best I've seen them play in a long time. All things are clicking. You have that point guard at the head. Jackson Kohler was playing great. Obviously, they dipped down, like Chris said, they were a little tired. But when you consider how well both these teams are playing right now and how much it really can shape the season going forward, I think that almost no matter what, this has a potential. It's going to be a top 3 victory for any team in the conference all year, just when you consider how big the stakes are and setting up the second game in Ann Arbor, because no matter what, if Michigan State wins, well, then you have a chance to get both. Well, if Michigan wins, well, then Michigan State has to win in Ann Arbor, and then the stakes get even bigger there. So it's like no matter what, this game has just a massive, massive amount on the line here.
I'm still in the camp that it could mean nothing come that point, because you've got Nebraska and Illinois and Purdue still looming. I think that, I don't feel like, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I do think it has the potential to be a top 3 game, but there's still a lot of basketball left. We could look back at it and say that Nebraska beating Michigan State was the reason why Nebraska won, or, or Nebraska beating Illinois. At Illinois, I don't think you can discredit. It's too early at the midpoint to kind of project that. I think to your other point, this is probably the biggest Michigan State game since 2019. That there's no question about that. And both those teams, I think that was Jawan's first year. The 18 and 19 years, I thought were really kind of the benchmark for where these programs were, as Izzo said yesterday, when both these teams were really good, then it's a rivalry. I think those were the 2 years that the 18-19 or 17-18 and 18-19 years, and really you could even throw it a little bit before that. I think those years were so good, and then when the tail end of the Jawan years, Michigan dropped off a little bit, and Michigan State was down during COVID and that. And then last year it started to elevate a little bit more. And I do think you can't look at this game and not think of how that last game that they met ended, because that's the defining moment of last season with Trey Holloman pushing guys, and none of those guys are left, mind you. But those
LJ
memories
Kaysen is. LJ
well,
Kaysen is.
but those memories are still there for not only the players who do return, but also for the fans, more importantly, and Breslin's going to be a cauldron because of that.
I wrote a column today that's rightfully being panned already by MSU fans about the most anticipated games in the Izzo era. And I think that's a better way to frame this, because it's very hard at the end of January to know exactly what something will mean. It's obviously going to be important because it can be a swing win. It's a win that it can propel you. It's a game that most teams won't get if you win it. For example, it's a hard game. It's hard for Illinois to beat Michigan State. So if Michigan beats Michigan State, that's one thing you're doing that somebody else might not do. And I thought this was arguably the most anticipated game of the Izzo era. Now, anticipated and biggest are two different things, right? I mean, 2019 is by far the biggest game. Now, where I'm being panned is people are saying I didn't eat for 2 days or sleep for 2 days for that 2019 finale, when the Big Ten title was on the line. And that wins, right? But I think when you go back to the way last season ended and sort of the acrimony between the two teams and sort of the suspense of this one and the curiosity of the matchup, and you wait until the end of January, 10 games in for both teams, and they're both this good, to see what it looks like, it creates an anticipation that I think is good as anything that has been. And you can look at, obviously the second game in 2019, there's the 2013 game with when Breslin, when they were both really good. There are several games throughout time that you can look at, and but I think it has that potential, and it's in that realm and in that sphere, because it is one of those, we've been waiting for this. January 30th has just been looming on the calendar. It's sort of everything else has happened, and these teams, to their credit, have found a way not to trip up, even when it's occasionally been close, even when it's been a real dicey finish at Rutgers. So I don't know what this game will be. It's going to be important to some degree, because it's a seed line in the NCAA tournament. Maybe it's depending on how it finishes. But anticipation, it's up there with the best ever.
I mean, let's not get prone to hyperbole here, because the biggest game was when they met in the Big Ten tournament championship.
No.
100%. 100%.
Was that Rage Bay for Graham?
2019, Graham.
That can't happen. The Big Ten tournament can't ever be the biggest game. No, okay, for a couple reasons.
Okay, no, stop right here. I'm going to tell you why it is. Because neither one of those teams wanted to lose a championship to the other one. And there has never been a point where they had met with that title on the line. So
wasn't the regular season title on the line like 3 weeks earlier?
The regular season title was on the line a week earlier. That's the game.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. But that title, that is a single game title, right? That's not a culmination of everything. And you even said it at that point that you blame Foster Lawyer for Michigan State being there.
100%. Those are different arguments.
And once that happened, and that was there was no chance that Tom Izzo or anybody else was going to sit there and say, well, you know what, we could just lose this game.
But right there.
If that one mattered, Graham,
there are ones that matter.
But I'm saying that, and again, we're talking about biggest game since, right?
But
biggest game since
2019, the regular season finale to win the actual Big Ten title,
which was
when
before
both
that
teams were playing for it. Was it? I'm not saying the Big Ten tournament championship game didn't wind up being mattering. It mattered in 2012 as a tiebreaker with Ohio State, Michigan State, which it split, and it mattered with in 2000. But you think about 2014, for example. That Michigan team didn't want anything to do with Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. They had won they had beaten them twice. It's like, why do we got to do this again? And then in 2019, the same deal. Like, that's what makes the Big Ten tournament have less meaning. Cassius Winston, we joke sometimes about teams sort of not being all in on the Big Ten tournament. The worst game I saw Cassius Winston play since he was like a freshman was against Ohio State in that quarterfinal. He was openly trying to check out and get that team home and get a rest before the NCAA tournament. They just won the Big Ten title. Foster Lawyer hits 4 3-pointers out of nowhere, and they win, and then they get a good matchup against Wisconsin. And then it's Michigan, so you got to show up, right? And that did wind up being a game that meant something. I'm not saying it didn't mean anything, but it's not. The Big Ten, because the other thing is nothing can ever mean anything when 8 minutes afterwards the brackets are released and nobody talks about it. Like that's the other problem. If the Big Ten ever wants that to mean something, they have to move it to Saturday. Until then, it has very little meaning because you can't even write a story about it. I mean, Tony, Michigan wins the Big Ten. When did they win it? Last year?
Last year. No, I totally agree. I mean, they not only did they win the Big Ten tournament, they beat Purdue in the semifinal, right? And Purdue was on one of the top lines, and they do it in Indy, so it's kind of like a road win. And Michigan still ends up on the 5 line on the West Coast. It's like, well, why'd you even play these games?
And how many people are reading? Nobody. I mean, who was reading about winning?
No,
that final
I
game
was so upset. I almost.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the locker. I'm in the locker room with them watching the bracket reveal, right?
Yeah,
and so I'm trying to get my questions in about this game. I'm like, this really doesn't matter. And then as soon as the bracket comes out, I'm like, okay, so what do you think?
Right.
Where you're going?
Okay.
And then I ended up writing a follow on both, but no, the as I recall, the numbers were what the readership was much more about what was coming up in the tournament. Then
I'm gonna change that a little bit because we're looking at it from our perspective in our job and from the teams what they got next. Do you know how many times Tom Izzo corrected people after that Big Ten tournament when people were calling Michigan a Big Ten champion? He said tournament champions. Yeah, it matters. It matters to them. It matters to the fan base.
Well, it matters to him that people get it right. That they don't overdo the tournament. You know
but to say that the Big Ten championship doesn't matter if it gets under Izzo's craw about the difference between the two, it still matters.
Well, I think it's because he means one matters more than the other.
Right. If people started getting the NBA Cup wrong and saying, that the Milwaukee Bucks won last year's championship or whatever, you'd correct them if you were the actual NBA champion. I mean, it's just.
I don't disagree with that. But this is how fan bases operate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody is going to. I mean, this is a tale as old as time, right? Like, so when Michigan football beats Ohio State in the regular season, and then Ohio State wins the national championship, you're touting the head-to-head, right? But 3 years prior, when Michigan State beat Michigan in the head-to-head in 21, but then Michigan goes and wins the Big Ten title, and they're in the CFP, they go, okay, you won the battle, we won the war. And that's not a Michigan thing. Every fan base does that. You're always going to look at it as a 6 or as a 9, right? I mean, it's just perspective. But
I had one tournament. One quick thing: the Big Ten tournament, to be fair to fan bases too, the Big Ten Network, because it's their thing, they push the Big Ten tournament as the championship relentlessly and annoyingly and irresponsibly, frankly. But that's a whole different argument.
I agree.
Yeah, but I had a question about the actual game, and now I feel like is the time to do it. And sorry, Andrew, I know you're the one running point here, but I actually just had this question.
No, please,
Chris. Chris, have you done our homework assignment that our editors gave us about the matchups to watch and this and that? And if so, I'm curious what you think is the matchup to watch. You seem like a guy who does this.
No, I have not done my homework on that yet.
Okay.
But I'd have to be Graham to not realize that the biggest assignment's going to be in the post. I mean, Michigan's got size. I think Michigan State's got size. I think that's going to be interesting to see how Carson Cooper against Yaxel is going to be a fantastic watch, because Cooper is considered and lauded as this great defender, but he's now given up 4 or 5 inches. He hasn't had to do that.
Is that who they're going to put on?
I think Yaxel? He meant Mara. I think he meant Mara.
Or Mara, excuse me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, I thought it was.
Sorry, yeah. I told you I didn't do my homework. But no, Cooper against Mara, I think, is going to be the interesting one. Yaxel, I don't know who they put on him. I mean,
Cohen Carr, right?
Cohen Carr is the logical choice on that, because I mean, he has elevated himself into a borderline and cusp elite defensive player. And I think
he started that journey last year too.
I think the biggest thing about Cohen Carr, sometimes what he doesn't do is what makes him elite, because he's in the back of guys' minds with his ability to go from the weak side to block shots and some of the other freakish athletic things. Like, it's not something he physically is doing. I think he puts something in. I don't think Michigan's going to have that. I don't think Yaxel will have that. It'll be a fascinating watch to kind of see exactly where Cohen Carr is a defender and Yaxel is a player too. And I think the third one is going to be the point guard matchup. You got to be able to listen. Jeremy Fears has done a good job of getting under other teams' skins and, getting under opponent fan bases. That's going to be one, like you saw what Rutgers did, the blueprint's there. If you take Jeremy Fears out of his game for a full game, Michigan State's not the same team because they don't have the second and third point guard options like they did a year ago.
I think what's going to be interesting for Fears is, they've been getting a lot of their offense recently on Fears driving and scoring, or Fears driving and lobbing to Carson Cooper and things like that. Like those things get a lot more difficult against Michigan, and they kind of want you to come into the paint and meet them where they are. Especially when Mara's in the game, they don't play ball screens the same way. And I'm curious, like, what that looks like for MSU when some of the things they've been counting on aren't there. I think the real key for MSU too is, like, they've been an elite rebounding team. They're number one in defensive rebounding, top 10 in offensive rebounding, and they're playing a team with size. Like, they have to remain an elite rebounding team in this game. And if that happens against Michigan size, then that's a huge part of it. And then they got to stay out of foul trouble. Michigan has more depth to me to deal with foul trouble than Michigan State, whereas the strength in numbers a year ago is, people talk about, they got some depth now, but they got four guys they can't play on the court without, really. And especially the size in here, they need both their big guys to stay out of foul trouble. You can't have Fears in foul trouble. And then the defensive assignments for Cohen Carr are important. And you can use Jordan Scott in certain ways there. But they need to stay out of foul trouble, and they need to rebound well. And then they also need – the real story of Michigan's dip is they're like a 28% three-point shooting team since Christmas.
That's what I was going to say.
And so they were blowing the doors off people because they had all this inside ability and efficiency, and yet they had guards who were, playing out of this world. Well, those guys aren't playing out of this world anymore, and that's made them a little more vulnerable and you have some weaknesses here and there. And so that to me is like, if Michigan shoots like they've been shooting, they're not going to run away from Michigan State.
And to that point, Michigan State gave up 10 threes to a really bad Rutgers shooting team. So that's something to watch.
The real dip in Michigan's three-point shooting, and you hate to pin it on any one person because it's a team-wide thing, but just percentages, is Yaxel. Yaxel has made 6 of 43s this month in January. That's 15% on 5 looks a game. That's not even 1 out of 5. And so that's why, for a little look ahead, the matchup I picked was Yaxel on what I figured was going to be Cohen Carr, although Chris says it might be Carson Cooper, but we'll see what happens there. And it's just, if Yaxel isn't making threes, he's this nagging sort of calf thing has prevented him from having the same explosion, particularly when trying to cut left, because it's his left calf, or I guess turn right, that is, off his left side. That's been trouble. And he's still shooting 68% on twos this year. He's 68 for 100. At one point he was like 80%, and it almost didn't feel fluky. Like, you just know numbers can't stay that high. But all these looks, he's either getting a really good look at the hoop, or he's getting fouled. And so how is he able to finish through contact? Obviously, there's not a lot of threes who can guard Yaks, right? That's just the way it's shaken out. That's what happens when you're 6'9", 240 in the college game. But I wonder if Cohen Carr is big enough, athletic enough, has hoppy enough, whatever you want to call it, to sort of disturb him. I think Michigan needs Yaxel at his best. He can't be what he was against Nebraska this last week. 3 of 10, 0 of 5, 10 points, 3 boards. Now, Michigan does have a ton of depth. Morris Johnson Jr. is just a workhorse. You almost just sort of write him down for a double-double, even though a lot of times it ends up as like 12-7, 12-8. Just the way he works on the glass is second to none. And then Mara's got a ton of size too. So how does Michigan State's elite rebounding prowess, how does that hang against Michigan with size that hasn't rebounded that great this year, but they have the size to do it? And you always feel like they're going to. And then my last one is Michigan's Michigan likes to force teams into the mid-range too, right? Like they are number one or top 5 in the country in 2-point proximity distance on KenPom, and they're top 2 in 2-point percentage on offense and 2-point percentage on defense. How does that shake out as well? Because I mean, from what I've seen of Michigan State, they take mid-range twos like Rip Hamilton. I mean, there's just a ton of it. Like it's just so different than watching Michigan, because Michigan is, they're like trying to rely on the 3 true outcomes, like the threes, the layups and dunks, and the free throws. Say again, Chris.
It's very analytics be damned, and I think a lot of that has to do with the shoot. Cohen Carr has had some ups and downs from outside. So I've talked with Izzo about this a few times. Some of these guys get their outside game going by stepping in and starting the mid-range. So I'm very curious to see what they do with Jackson Kohler. Tony, what do you think that the plan is for Michigan defensively? Because Kohler has struggled. I mean, you talk about Yaxel struggling from 3. Kohler has really struggled. I almost think that Jackson Kohler is one of those, you hate to say it, it's weird to say it, he's an X factor right now, but he really hasn't been the key contributor that he was early in the season for this team.
I think this is going to be one of his toughest matchups of the year, because I think it's Morez Johnson Jr. Because Adai Mara has been at his worst when he's getting stretched out by stretch bigs. Fortunately, Carson Cooper is not much of a stretch big, so I think he's going to be doing what he likes to do and just sort of camping in the paint, right? And Michigan has almost been instructed to allow, you stay even with someone as long as you can, but if the drive is like a wide receiver, like if they're even, they're leaving sort of thing, if they're by you, do not swipe, do not foul, don't get yourself in foul trouble, because Mara is just going to clean it up. And so I would see Morez certainly drawing the Jackson assignment, especially because he is the guy who is the most capable on this roster of switching 1 through 5. And so say Kohler and Fears are trying to do their ball screen thing and a pick and pop. Morez can stay in front of Jeremy Fears as much as anyone can, right? Like that's still a tough matchup on the play-to-play basis. But Michigan is not going to be afraid if those guys get switched, where Morez is going to be able to hang his own, and if he is able to fight through the screen, he can hang with anyone on the perimeter, especially a big man who is not going to put the ball on the deck and blow by you.
The nightmare to me for teams, for Michigan State and everybody, is if Morez Johnson becomes sort of an Xavier Tillman type defensively.
He's been my comp all year.
Agree.
Yeah, because at the end of, and that NCAA tournament obviously got canceled, but the reason Michigan State had a claim that they might win a national title that year, and there are like 7 teams who claim that would have happened for them that year. But the reason Michigan State had a valid claim is the 2 weeks prior to the pandemic, different types of elite big men in the Big Ten he had shut down, from centers, Luka Garzas, to Lamar Stevens out at Penn State, and if all relied on a forward or center, you couldn't beat MSU, because it was his show defensively, and it was a problem. So you could beat MSU if you had the right guards and things. But I am curious to see that too, because so much of what Kohler gets, and they won't mind him switching, to be honest, on the Fears, if that creates the shot for Kohler. They're going to need Kohler to hit shots. He really is in a bit of a funk for the last about 5 games now from outside, and he was shooting, he was like 32 for 60 through 16 games, and he's like 3 for 19 in his last 5. So he was at an incredible clip for a while, to the point that you have to believe it's just a little bit of a funk, but they've got it. He's going to have to make shots, and because what you can't rely on is Cohen Carr's hit 7 of his last 11 threes, and I think Cohen Carr is going to be a steadier 3-point shooter, but it's just not something you can count on.
So many interesting matchups in this one, top down from the starting lineups. You can go to Mara and Cooper and, Kohler and Morez, but we got a question about Cam Ward, who, if you only watch Michigan State in the non-conference play, when they played North Carolina and Arkansas, he was a guy who, was making a big impact, right? But over the last flow of the season, he had the wrist injury. So is there anything that Andrew Arbau asked? Is there from the beginning of the year, it seemed like they were going to rely on him, but is there an explanation for his drop in play other than the injury or the freshman wall? And do you think he could make an impact in a game where Tony and I were talking on the podcast? It feels like it might be a Jordan Scott, a Cam Ward, or like a LJ Kaysen who comes in and hits 2 or 3 threes, right? That could possibly swing this game.
Trey McKinney.
Yeah, McKinney.
Trey McKinney. Yeah.
One. I think with Ward, he's been out of sorts with the wrist injuries, particularly offensively, because so much of what he does is around the boards, the cleanup work, some of the things that he just, was feasting on early in the season. He needs those hands, and this was around the point where I think he's supposed to be getting a little closer to getting full strength back from the last big time timeline that I heard about it. He's playing. It's not like he's not playing through it, and it's not like he's going to get hurt any better. But the goal is to get the tape off, to get him back to not having anything on it. And that, I think early February was when I heard on that. And I think there's something to be said too about the freshman wall, because listen, he did all that stuff in the non-conference, and he had some big games against elite national teams, but playing in the Big Ten is a lot different. And especially when, your minutes have been up and down and you're out of the rotation where you were at that point. I do think Jordan Scott, the game he had against Rutgers, showed a lot more of the confidence. And I think from freshman standpoint, this is the point. Once you get to the midpoint of the Big Ten season, you start to see that corner turned past the wall and towards the finish line. So, it won't surprise me if it happens for Cam Ward, but it also won't surprise me if it won't be a week or two longer, a couple more games before he kind of just gets past it.
Tony, my wife tuned into the show. She wants to know who's got the better coach, or I guess we can go with the coaching advantage in this one. You're somebody who knows both coaches quite well. Michigan, Dusty May, only year 2. So is there anything that sticks out as a coaching advantage in this matchup?
Well, I mean, there's so many elements of being a coach, right? Like the better coach in this day and age, right? I mean, I think Izzo has proven that he can do it his way, and he's going to continue to develop and insulate and like sort of play defense on his roster and then pick the pieces. But as far as put the vision to put a roster together, to be able to sell it and see how the pieces are going to come together. I mean, this is 2 years in a row now. I mean, there's 2 years of evidence versus 30 years of evidence. But I mean, Dusty May, I think in this era is a fabulous, fabulous coach. To be able to sell Yaxel on, hey, we're going to turn you from a late first round guy to a lottery pick. We're going to use you sort of similarly to Danny Wolf, but you're going to play some 3, not some 4. As soon as you hear from Yaxel, calling Morez Johnson before you even celebrate with your staff to say, hey, so he is coming, and here's why this is still going to work for you. To visualize that Elliot Cadeau is a better 3-point shooter, which the season has showed, than his 31% at North Carolina. We're going to get him coming more off the catch, like inside out threes, not just off the bounce. In those regards, I mean, I think Dusty May is elite. In this matchup, in this game, I don't know how you couldn't pick Tom Izzo, just with everything he's learned in just every regard, right? There's no argument. I don't know many coaches in the country who have an argument where you can say that coach is better than Tom Izzo is. Maybe like Hurley at Connecticut, because he's won a couple titles in the last few years. But I mean, Coach K is gone. Pitino's gone. I think at goodness gracious, at Arkansas, John Calipari, like, I don't know that you can even say objectively that he's a better coach than Tom Izzo. So in this, I just think Dusty is still learning this rivalry. He has played one time at Breslin Center. So that's a tough sell for anyone.
Let me take a little bit of a swing at that. I think that's part of what makes the anticipation of this so interesting in these early stages of the Dusty May era, right? Izzo early on, and May doesn't have any of the baggage of like Izzo early on talks about how it hurt them in the rivalry, how emotionally invested he was, and how much he hated Michigan, and like he coached to it, and it was a problem, and he had to get through that. And so his passion for it doesn't get in the way anymore of performing when they play Michigan. And so not having that level of I always use the word sweat equity, but just sort of history with it. Like I don't know if that hurts Dusty May or not. I think that what's been impressive that he's done in terms of roster construction, you can have a lot of resources and money, and I would guess Michigan has top 3 or 4 finances to purchase a roster every year, but Kentucky has more, and Kentucky just failed miserably. It is hard to get guys who buy into a team concept year over year. Now, there will be a year, if this is the philosophy, he will run into years at some point where it doesn't work. But ultimately, there are years where Izzo doesn't have a piece, and he's been unwilling to get it at times too. Mm-hmm. So there are ways to fail with both approaches. But I think that's part of what's interesting about this is Ken, what does this look like in year 2 for Dusty May against Tom Izzo?
It's a referendum. It's a referendum to me. It's a referendum of 2 different styles of roster building in this era, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean one is wrong. I mean, I asked Izzo about that, and I asked some players about that. It's the you can go back all the way to Syracuse and Jim Boeheim, right? Playing, whether it be playing a soft non-conference schedule or playing that 2-3 zone, he still won. It can be done different ways. Izzo said yesterday, there's more than one way to skin a cat. That said, I don't know if that's the same apples to oranges, in styles of play versus getting experienced 21-year-old guys with 2 years of college experience versus, 4 or 5-star high school guys. I mean, we're going to find that out in the next few years with the classes that Izzo's bringing in. I'm curious to see for you, Tony. Do you feel like this is an every year thing that Dusty wants to do, or does he want to be more of a get those elite younger guys?
No, he certainly. I mean, I'm almost going to plead the fifth. It's kind of a balance. He is not just. I mean, he does not think that. He'd like to have some guys like an Oscar Goodman. There's a name that not a lot of people know. He is a starter for the U19 New Zealand national team who came on campus early last year. He's redshirting this year. He's going to be, or not redshirting this year, but he's like the 11th man. He's going to be a factor. Ricky Liburd, who's redshirting this year, he's going to be a factor moving forward. They're hoping to keep Trey McKinney around. They're hoping to keep LJ Kaysen around, right? And so there is going to be some growth through the roster. I mean, he kept Namari Burnett in both years. This is Namari's 3rd year here. This is Will Cheddar's 5th year here. But they're dudes. A lot of them are going to come from the portal. I mean, Andrew made a great point on our other podcast. Michigan, in which we all know, but Michigan's top 4 guys in rotationally and just who they rely on. Elliot Cadeau, former McDonald's All-American, 5-star transfer. Adai Mara, former top 15 international 5-star from UCLA. Yaxel Lendeborg, 1st-round pick, top player in the portal, transfer. Morris Johnson Jr., fringe 5-star, top 40 guy. And, I mean, they're going to bring in a lot of talent that way. It's just and they proved that they can do it in sort of a light version the year before when you're winning with Danny Wolfs and Vlad Goldens, guys who are good players and obviously in the NBA, but not proven. Now you're taking players with even more pedigree than that and plugging them into the similar formula. So I think he really wants to utilize both. Dusty does not have one hard and fast philosophy about my guys need to come from here or from here, but also it's Michigan's 4 transfers against Michigan State's 4 guys who have 10 years experience combined, maybe 11, 12. I don't know what it is in this rivalry, guys who've played it in it a lot. That's my last major, how much does that matter? It might not.
Right. 14 years, if you want to count. 13 and a half with Fears. And that's just from 4 of the starting 5.
Yep. And then you got Michigan starting 5. Namari Burnett is the only one who has played in this game. And he was telling me when we were walking out of the press conference the other day, well, he's not a starter. But Roddy Gale, Kaysen, Cheddar, guys, but the starters, Namari was telling me, he's like, I'm 0-4 against these guys. Like when I came back, I was writing down these dates and this was one of my top priorities for coming back for a 6th year. Like he said, I'm looking forward to changing that, which is more outspoken than Amari normally is.
And both of these philosophies are ticking time bombs. I mean, Izzo's 70, and Michigan is paying at a rate that doesn't fit the rev share for what's given to basketball. And so if the way things change in the sport at any point, this doesn't work, right? In basketball, it may in football. So I think both things are interesting and I think that's why, Izzo will be able to probably do what he's doing as long as he's around. And Dusty May's flexibility with it is important because you don't know at this point in college athletics year to year especially in a sport that is, doesn't bring in anywhere near as much money as people realize. It is football and everything else. Basketball pays for itself and one other sport. There are rosters that might be more expensive than the profit the program makes in basketball. Like it's not quite football. And so it will be interesting to see, as people have to adjust, I think it's going to be, 5 to 10 years before we truly understand what a great coach is in this era and can trust it. And I think Dusty May is one of the early ones because of what he did at Florida Atlantic, because of what he's doing early at Michigan. It looks like one of those people that is a home run in terms of being able to adapt and coach in the modern era.
I'll bet you that Chicago rental car that 5 to 10 years from now is going to look nothing like right now. Yeah. Quite frankly, I'm also curious how in the next couple of years that these programs are going to start paying for the NBA players. They're going to come back into the college game. So, we've already seen how much has changed within this season with rules and ruling and everything else.
I want to leave you guys with this funny moment from Solari yesterday. If anybody gets a chance to look at the videos, so Izzo press conference, or not press conference, but it's like reporters gathered around him, and somebody at the end. If you ask Izzo the wrong thing, and we're on a limited time, he will go on a tangent that can take 10 minutes and goes off and derails everything. And Solari has been responsible for derailing a few press conferences.
I asked about questions about important matters in the national landscape.
So somebody asked about high school NIL, and you can see in the video, Solari's head hit the padding there. He just was like, oh God, no, not this. Great look.
It's part of it. It's part of it. But also, I had Fred Human pushing me from the left side.
That's true. I had Fred Human on the other side. We both had Fred Human.
Yeah. So there was a multiple layer effect there. But yeah, but we were in this. I think the thing that I said to myself was not why today, why this week. I mean, it's like that's a question.
Well, it was just approved, but
it's a question for Monday. And not when you got in the Michigan game and they've got a limited period of time and the things that you need to figure out.
I think your reaction was fun. That's all. I think it was fun to watch.
Speaking of press conferences, I have one I need to leave.
You better go.
45 seconds.
We did an hour plus.
Over an hour. So, well, thanks guys. I'm glad we did it. I mean, Tony and I said on the other show we did, like we could have talked for 3 hours about all the different matchups in this. Like we barely even touched the game, right? And there's still so much that we could have discussed, but super fascinating matchup. Coverage at lsj.com, freepress.com. So check out all of those. Check out the Spartan Speak feed for upcoming episodes. And of course the Hail Yes feed as well. So with that, thanks as always for everyone who made it this far. And we will talk to you guys in the near future after this game is in the books.